Yo, what's up? What's up? Okay, so you don't know who I am. I am Kyle Banks. When I was 16 years old, I started my first business. Crazy. It's called Tribe Promotions. Here's a little YouTube video, and that's me with some cute little dyed hair. And then my last business called Bojano Homes, I sold it right there for that much. And then I decided to go all in and start this new business called TaskBlink. Here's how it's doing. I do not show this to be like, look at me. I show this so that like when I continue talking, that you take me seriously, so you don't question why you're listening to me right now. And the purpose of this video is that this is my first video, and you don't know who I am most likely. And so I just want to share a little bit about me. I figured as I'm trying to grow businesses that it would probably make sense that people know who I am. Once someone knows, likes, and trusts you, it certainly makes it easier to help people, opposed to going over that gap of trust. I also, with this same line of thinking, made a LinkedIn page. Crazy. I have never had one prior. My first post is just kind of outlining how I got here right now. And we're basically my very first business. I was ripping out cold DMs and cold emails and reaching out to hip hop and rap artists. And that business, some way, somehow, I was making 180,000 a year revenue in high school as a senior. And we were basically sending out emails that then would say to text me, and the phone numbers were my fellow classmates. There were about 20 people in my school that would sell our promotions, basically. And what our promotions were like, basically this SoundCloud. Back in 2016, all these rappers were getting famous from SoundCloud. And I used to throw a bunch of parties in high school, and they would be cool. And I would have the idea of, hey, what if this was an event? What if this was like a concert? We could totally charge people like 15 bucks. If 100 people showed up, that's some voila right there. That was the idea. And so we paid this initial performer, and then we had some opening acts. I had no idea that openers for concerts typically pay to perform. I had no idea they offered to pay. I thought that was awesome. And then they were like, hey, how do you promote? Can you promote our music? And being on it, and I had a partner at the time with this, we were like, yeah, that we can totally help promote your music. Absolutely. And we had no idea how to do that. But the main performer that we paid had some followers on SoundCloud, and we paid him to repost their music, and we made a little profit. Then we had the idea of, hey, what if we take a page with 50,000 SoundCloud followers and we just start reaching out to these pages and ask them, hey, how much to post? Then we were having these like $10 for 50K followers or $15 for 100,000 followers. And then we would go to pages and say, hey, I can get you posted on this page and that page in exchange for you posting this song. And so basically we'd take 100K followers, go to a page of 100K, and we would trade these reposts. I hope this is making sense. It's like a retweet of a song. That's kind of how SoundCloud works. And basically, we could trade our way to millions of followers. And so we had these networks of being able to post people's music that were unique to us in some sort of way, what Adam 2022 and No Jumper was doing at the time. So we were doing that, and surprisingly, that was actually working, and we made money with that. Then SoundCloud isn't a big deal anymore. Kind of had to change ideas. Same time when we were throwing these parties, we were like the worst Airbnb guests you could possibly imagine. But when I would go and I'd ask the hosts, hey, how's this going from a business perspective? And they'd be like, oh, this is the 30th night. We've been booked this month, or this guest house is paying for the whole mansion. And we were just hearing crazy stuff. And this is, I think it was 2017 when I first started Airbnb. And I was really expecting all the guests to be terrible. Most Airbnb guests are actually super nice. And all the horror stories you hear, yes, it happens, but that's really not that is realistic. But I was going into it thinking I was ready for anything, really. And I was also looking at this perspective. I was 18, and I figured I'm just going to rent a house, and I'll furnish it, and I'm going to put it on Airbnb, try and make a profit. If I pay less than $3,000 a month, right, and every single Airbnb is over $100 a night, I should be able to make some money. So that was the idea. And I figured, hey, if this doesn't work, I'll just live there. I'll just get a place that would be dope to stay at, rent it out. And if it's not making enough money, I'll just live there. We'll figure it out. And that was the plan. And sure enough, it worked. It actually worked really well. And then I was like, you know what? Let's get another home and basically rinse and repeat. And if it doesn't work, I'll live there. At one point, I had 4 houses still living at home with my parents. And then the landlords would ask me, they'd say, hey, they found out how much money we were making. And in one instance, it was like 1650 a month, and we were bringing in 6500 a month. And one of the landlords said, hey, I want in. And basically the offer was like, I'll buy your furniture in exchange for your management. So I want you to manage it. I'll give you a percentage because I want to keep the numbers the same. I'll buy the furniture. And if you don't agree to this, I will end your lease. So I wanted to get into management, but that's basically how I got into management. And from that point forward, just basically started picking up more properties for management. Felt like a cheat code because it was like instead of paying for properties, it was like people would just work their ass off to get these homes and then would just lob it to us. And I keep saying us. When I first started, it was me and a business partner. But then once it became property management, for whatever reason, my business partner was like, nah, you got it. And so I ran the whole thing myself and then had a team at that point, started building a team. But in a nutshell, grew it actually to 67 and then went down in size, whatever. But ultimately, when it came time to sell, it was like we grew to about 57 properties, sold it in November of 2025. And to back up a little bit, I really struggled when I was doing the Airbnb property management to try and articulate, here's why we're different. Here's why you can't do it yourself. Because you kind of can do it yourself. And there was this lever of pricing. Hey, we could earn you more with your Airbnb property. But nonetheless, it still really bothered me. I wanted to differentiate ourselves. So I really, when OpenAI ChatGPT came out, I was immediately obsessed. Within the first week of it launching, I was just all over it and had trouble sleeping, was just really into it. And when OpenAI first released API access, I already had prompts and whatnot for responding to guest inquiries, guest reviews, different things like this. And it made me realize that this API access was going to open the door to being able to autonomously respond to guest inquiries and pretty much automate a lot of Airbnb communications. And so I literally booked a hotel with the nicest work environment that cost too much. I did not know how long I was going to be at that hotel, but I locked myself in a hotel for 7 days and didn't come out until I had ChatGPT fully integrated with Airbnb and Vrbo. I was one of the first operators doing it. There's a company called Guest Guru. When I first came out with it, I was flexing on them. Guest Guru is like one of the first people to exit in that space. I never really made any money selling automated Airbnb automations. I never had a good UI or anything. But nonetheless, one of the first people doing that, and I thought it was super cool. I thought my whole business was going to grow because of it, but it really wasn't the case. It was nice. It increased some efficiencies, improved our customer service, but it really didn't make us more money. And from that point on, I started building all types of automations, anywhere from cleaners would take photos of the homes and I would have AI analyze the images and report which images, what the problems were, and send them feedback. I was really trying to automate everything, but I wasn't really building things that made money, like new revenue. And so and then basically had this idea to build automation that would scrape property data and use the estimated value of their home to be able to tell them how much they could earn on Airbnb and Vrbo. So think somebody has their property listed on Zillow as long-term rent, 2K a month, right? And I come in and I'm like, yo, you could rent this for 150 a night. 150 times 30 is 4,500 a month, right? You're leaving a lot of money on the table. I could do all the work for 15%, right? And you'd still make way more money, right? That's the pitch, right? And basically, I automated the process of scraping property data, skip tracing, finding out who owns it, and sending these personalized projections to people. And when I did that, actually made money. That was actually really cool. And it really started to make me question all this stuff I'm doing with AI and app integrations and cold outreach. My first business was entirely cold outreach, just reaching out to musicians, offering SoundCloud reposts. And I'm thinking, my high value skill set is this cold outreach, is this automations that I'm doing. I want to make sure I can differentiate myself. I should be focusing on the things that I have the highest value skill and where I could really help people the most. And so what was obvious to me at that point was that the AI and outreach work had outgrown my property management skill sets. That is now increasingly saturated. There's still plenty of money you can make in that space, but it's not the same. I will say that. COVID pandemic, when everyone came back from traveling, that was crazy. The gold rush at that time period. But yeah, cashed in, cashed out. And the more personalized a cold campaign got, the better it performed. So when I set these personalized projections, it wasn't just saying, hey, I'm a property manager, can I manage your property? It was completely personalized to their property, and it stated that I could prove it to them. It really did not come off like a message that was being mass sent to people. And even when I was reaching out with the SoundCloud, it was the same kind of concept, very personalized messaging. And with AI being put into the picture, I had this realization. Every business website is a wealth of context for outbound. And so basically, every business is going to say, here is why we're the best. Here is why I'm special. Here is who I provide work for. Here is, you get the point. They're going to articulate why they should work with them, what they do the best, who they provide this work for. And it makes it really easy for you to come in and analyze that website. And then by looking at the website, you know nothing about them except for the website, but that's a ton of information to be able to send a completely personalized message to tell them, here's how you could use my software. Here's how I could get you more homeowners that are in need of roofing projects, right? Whatever the frick it is, you could completely personalize your messages like that. And now AI can actually look at these websites and personalize every message. So we're in this period where, think about when ChatGPT first came out and you were sending these AI messages as a response to maybe your friends, coworkers, whatever, right? And nobody knew what ChatGPT was, and you could kind of get away with replying to all your emails with ChatGPT, where now you need to be a little bit more slick. So people, when they get these cold outreach messages, either it was entirely personalized or you're scraping websites online, analyzing their website, and then automatically sending these personalized messages. And people typically won't think that is the case. If it's personalized enough, a lot of people right now do not realize that this is completely possible to send personalized messages in a way that is almost like you're trying to prove that you're a human, but it's an AI. And the more personalized the messages, the higher the engagement's going to be. And so I saw a huge opportunity, and that's why I started TaskBlink in a nutshell. And then TaskBlink started growing really quick. And I was like, I'm going to sell this other business. And now I'm here. Now I'm talking to you about this stuff because I plan to make a bunch of other videos. My game plan is basically, hey, I've made a ton of mistakes. I'm sure I'll talk about it, but a ton of mistakes. I'm embarrassed, but I will say hundreds of thousands of dollars right down the toilet. And if I could theoretically watch a stream of videos that were just like my future self telling me, here's what you're going to need to know, whether you like it or not. And if I took my own advice and I acted upon it, then I wouldn't have made those mistakes. And I would get to where I want to be faster. Life would be better. That's the idea here. So I'm going to be putting out more videos around what I know and all this stuff, right? And hopefully you find it interesting. Hopefully I can provide some ridiculous value. Yeah, so subscribe, comment, do all the influencer stuff on my page. I don't know. Peace out. That's the end of the video.